Good morning, everybody. Mr. Jamnik here. Hope everyone's doing well. Moving into the next lesson, we're going to be focusing on evaluating expressions now. We already talked about how to write the expression using different vocabulary and keywords. And as we continue, we're going to focus on how to evaluate now based on the variable and the unknown value in this case. So as you're looking for it, the main thing is that we're going to evaluate an expression with an unknown value. So you're always going to have the variable that's not given. And I'm going to give you then what the variable is going to be replaced of with a number. Then it's going to be your job to figure out and use the order of operations to do the problem and substitute the number with the variable. So it's very basic as you start to go along, and then the numbers get up and the expression starts to get a little bit bigger and bigger. So as we're looking at the first one, it says x minus 9. That's really it. Okay, and then you don't know the values. When you're thinking about this, you have to plug in what they're telling you. The x in this case is the variable, which would be what, 15, right? So in this, you're just going to put in replace of the x. So this would be 15 now minus 9. And then you would solve that to get the answer. Okay, so basically what you're doing is taking the unknown variable, and the unknown variable is then given to you, which is then 15. You take that 15 and you substitute it to make the correct equation now. And then once you would do that, you would just do based on the order of operations and what the operations asking you to do, then you would solve. Okay, so we'll go back to that in a second. Okay, if you look at number 2, it has 16, and we know the bar in the middle means divided by, and it has the variable n. Again, the unknown number. Now I'm telling you that the unknown number in this case stands for 8. So you're just rewriting it. You're going to put 16 divided by 8. And then the same thing. Now you know that you substituted the 8 for the unknown variable, which would be n. Now you have your correct equation, and then you're ready to solve. Okay? Moving on to number 3. Basics, okay? Remember we went back and I went over this with you guys talking about when you see a number next to a variable. And everyone should remember that it means what? Very good, it means to multiply, right? So 4x means multiplication. And same thing, you have x equals 8. Now the only thing here that you have to make sure that you do is that when you write it, you're not going to take, obviously you're taking the x, which is the variable, and it equals 8, and you're substituting that for the x, right? But if you do this, you get 48. Now 48 is not the correct answer or the number, you're just combining the two. So if we're thinking about order of operations, what's the P represent? And in this case, you guys should know that the P represents what? Parentheses. So here, you wouldn't put 48, you would put 4 parentheses 8, which still is the same concept. You're taking 4, and that means multiplication. Then the 8, then you'll get your correct answer. Because otherwise you just combine the numbers. You don't know what operation to do because there really isn't any if you did a combination. So again, 4 next to a variable means multiplication, but when you substitute that number for the variable, make sure you put it in the parentheses. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a number, and then there's no other operation to perform. And then when we get down to this one, it says 10 plus x. Again, x, the variable, is given. It equals a 5. So 10 plus 5, and then you do your correct expression and then solve for the equation. So if we're looking at the numbers, take a second. I'm just going to step back here for a minute. Take a second, look at these 4. Think about as I'm going over them, and I'm going to retrace my steps, how to solve it, and see if you get the answers correct. Okay, so take a minute, and let's just look. Okay, got x minus 9. We got 16 divided by n. We got 4x, x equals 8, and we got 10 plus x. So think about that, and we will get to the problems in a second, okay? So I had a minute to overlook. Okay, so let's get back to action. Again, evaluating, finding an expression with the unknown value. So we have x minus 9, x is 15. Replace the 15 for the variable. 15 minus 9 gives us what? Very good. You get 6. Just put the box around it so we know we have the correct answer. We move to the next one. We had 16 divided by n. We know n is 8, so we're substituting the variable n for 8. So 16 divided by 8 will give you what? And again, some people can do kind of work backwards when you guys are doing these types of problems. 8 times what will give you 16, okay, which is also be the division. So everyone should get an answer of 2, right? Very good. Now we move down to this one where we have 4x. X is substituted with the variable 8. Remember I told you do not combine the two numbers. Make sure they're in parentheses so you can see the difference in the order of operations. So you have 4 times 8, which would give you an answer of 32. Okay, so far so good. And then as we're continuing, we have 10 plus x. X equals 5. Substitute the 5 with the variable x. And very simple, 10 plus 5 equals 15. Okay, so this is starting off with like the basics and the introduction, how you're continuing to evaluate, solve, and replace with the unknown number. And that's based on how you're writing the different expressions. So then we're going to start the next part, and then my next video will follow through a little bit. So this one now we're just adding on to the expression and the equation, and it's going to involve a little bit more with figuring out order of operations. So this is 4 parentheses x minus 4. And then I'm telling you that the variable x is going to be taken over by the number 8. So just write it as you see it, but make sure all you're doing is substituting the variable with the number. So this is going to be 4, right? Parentheses, don't forget that. Now you're taking the variable out because we know the known number, which is going to be 8 minus 4, close the parentheses. Now you have the true equation. So again, 4x minus 4. The unknown number, which is the variable, is 8. We substitute that, and now we have our correct equation, and now we follow the order of operations. So with order of operations, we know that we have to do inside the parentheses inside the parentheses first. To give you guys a little hint. So 8 minus 4 gives you what? 4, right? Maintain that 4 in the parentheses because you still have to bring this down, and you don't want it to be a 44. You want it to be a 4 parentheses 4. Because if you have the answer just 44, you didn't do it correctly. So we know that 8 minus 4 is 4. Bring down the next 4, keep it in parentheses just like we did up here. And then 4 times 4 gives you what? 16 for your final. Okay? Just circle that as you're following along. And then the last one for this particular part, we have 3 parentheses n plus 1. And I'm telling you that the unknown number in the variable is going to be replaced by the number 5. So just rewrite it as you see. 3 parentheses 5 plus 1 parentheses. And again, now you're going back to, sorry about that, a little sloppy, make that a 5. Now you're going back to order of operations. We know that we do the parentheses first, so we have 5 plus 1, which is what? 6. And then again, just as you see it, bring the 6 down. You don't want it to look like this because it looks like 2 separate numbers, or if you combine them, you put that number back in the parentheses, and now you have 3 times 6, which gives you 18. Okay, so let's just retrace our steps as we're looking at this. Evaluating expressions, evaluate an expression with an unknown value, you're substituting it. So you're going to be given a expression with the number, and that number you're going to substitute with the variable. It could be many variables, not just one. You could have 2 or 3, and we're going to pick up on that later in the week. And then as you're doing that, rewrite it, go step by step so you can see the different procedures and then how you follow order operations to go from step 1, which is the unknown, to step 2 is writing the variable for the unknown and then actually solving it. Okay, so think about this as you're substituting the variables. Take your time when you're doing the order of operations. Make sure you close the parentheses and make sure you follow the order of operations to come to the correct conclusion of solving and writing an expression to figure out the unknown number. Okay, we'll pick up later in the week and we'll get a little more in depth about some order of operation problems that require evaluated expression. Everybody have a great day. I will see you soon.